Welcome to this joint collaboration event with the GridPlus team as well as Project X. Just wanted to introduce myself, obviously DiCaprio. You guys see my name on Discord all the time. And yeah, just a few housekeeping items over here. You have a GridPlus info channel where you can see the lovely GridPlus official URL. Also on the left-hand side, you'll see a GridPlus chat, and keep the general chat just Project X specific. For the newcomers to our Discord channel, welcome. If you guys have the time after this session, please feel free to pop into the general chat, introduce yourselves, and honestly just, meet our amazing moderators and our amazing team. What else do I have here? This session is being recorded. I think Mikey is in charge of the recording. I see him in the audience now. Hey, Mikey, thanks for doing that. Yeah, essentially that was it from my end. Justin, I'll pass your team over the mic.
Quick introductions. My name is Carl Creeder. I'm the CEO, inventor of the Lattice1 hardware wallet, which is really sort of the next generation hardware wallet design for Web3. Justin, you want to introduce yourself?
So yeah, I'm Justin LaRue. I'm the COO of GridPlus. We are based out of Austin, Texas, and we launched with our Web3 focused hardware wallet in December of 2020, and it's been a blur since. It's been fantastic. So we're excited to be here, speak with your community. We love doing these AMAs where we just sort of cover basics. There's a lot of things that everyone should know that once you start diving in, people are afraid to ask anymore. And so we thought we'd run through all of that, and hit us up in the chat too if anything that we're saying is not clear, or if you have other questions on it. And then second half, DiCaprio will kind of open it up from there. Some of the questions you guys have shared earlier. On that note, DiCaprio, so for format, do you want me to just kind of dive into the first topics and the basics that we want to get into?
Yeah, sure, Justin. That'd be much appreciated.
So you guys are an interesting community that we've seen. A lot of people in the NFT space are getting into crypto in a totally different way than a lot of people did originally, where there's a new cohort that's drawn to the application layer, and you guys are getting thrown into the deep end of the pool. Using Avalanche, you're using tools where you have to manually change your RPC endpoint and follow these tutorials just to even get started, and it can be a little bit overwhelming. People see these tools. They probably start out with MetaMask as their browser extension of choice when they're managing NFTs on their desktop. And we start using these things, but we don't necessarily know how or why they work. And that educational component is really the critical part of keeping yourself safe out there. In particular, the very most rudimentary thing we can say is, what's a private key? What's a wallet? Wallet's a total misnomer. Everyone always thinks initially that assets are stored in whatever software or hardware device you're using. But with public key cryptography, all you're really doing is maintaining your key to be able to make an action on a given chain. So you are not storing assets in one given place. It's like maintaining a key ring more, and you can have multiple copies of that key ring. So how is this different than how encryption used to work, or how we used to do things on the internet in general? Encryption used to be largely focused on one-way ciphers, meaning, think of your secret decoder ring that you get in a box of Cracker Jack. You're taking something and coding it, and someone has to have the ability to decode it. But with private and public key cryptography pairs, what you are actually doing is allowing someone else to verify that you are signing and that you are the rightful owner of those keys without having to give someone else that cipher. So it really changed the model. That's why we can use these wallets for so much more than, just even sending assets. They're useful for verifying identity or ownership of digital assets and logins and so much more. So it's a powerful tool. My first exposure to it had nothing to do with crypto. It was using PGP for email. And so there's a lot of broad applications of this, but with Bitcoin, we moved it to an entirely different area for actual digital ownership being proven. So
yeah, let me maybe just add to what Justin's saying. So, fundamentally, right, if you're going to draw parallels maybe to more traditional systems, you can think of your public key as effectively your username and your private key as effectively your password. The difference with blockchains, obviously, is that we can't call somebody up or go through sort of a password reset process if we were to lose our username and or password. So when you sort of hold your assets, especially in the NFT space, because there's very few centralized custodians that will hold NFTs. So most people that are in the NFT space are self-custodying their NFTs, meaning you're holding your key material and you're interacting with your NFTs via something like MetaMask, right? So, all right, that's like the biggest sort of like UI UX challenge in the space, especially surrounding security, is being able to sort of maintain that password and that username in a secure, durable, and robust way. Because again, if you ever lose it, nobody's there to help you. So all of the tools that we use, right, introduce this concept of a seed phrase or a mnemonic phrase. So it's the 12, 18, or 24 words that you have to write down up like a new MetaMask wallet. And that's like the first piece of security, is those words effectively like are your, you never want to share those words with anybody. MetaMask will never ask for those words. If you get a GridPlus Lattice1, we would never ask for those words. So like if anybody is ever asking you for a seed phrase, short of you entering it into a new wallet to set up that wallet with an old account, you are likely getting scammed. At any time no one should ever ask. It should really only be if you're like setting up a new wallet, you're entering it, and anytime someone brings up a seed phrase, that should immediately set off red flags for you, and you should ask, what's going on here and what am I doing? So the interesting part though is there's actually two pieces to security. One is the seed phrase, and I think people in the space can kind of understand that now most of the time. But the second piece that fewer people understand is you can still get owned without having your seed phrase or your keys compromised if somebody can get you to sign a transaction that you didn't intend to sign. So signing and verifying transactions in Web3 is just as important as keeping your seed phrase safe. So maybe it's not signing something that you didn't intend to sign is like the OpenSea hack specific to the NFT community, right? So what happened there is that basically there were old offers on chain for NFTs and OpenSea wasn't presenting those, but they were still existing on the chain. So you need to, so what ended up happening is somebody figured this out and basically transactions on old bids for NFTs. Now, that's not necessarily exactly an example of signing something you didn't intend, but that it's similar in that you signed a message previously that you didn't sort of revoke, right? So obviously that got fixed with OpenSea, but there's other examples of phishing in the NFT community where somebody will effectively create like a new NFT project and have a contract with various get you to interact with that contract, which gives that contract effectively access to your wallet. And then they just pull all the NFTs out of your wallet. So you always want to make sure when you're signing stuff, you're signing things that are reputable, you're signing things that you understand, and ideally you're checking what you're signing before you sign it.
Yeah, that's an important lead into, what are the attack vectors that you guys will actually see? It's not a homework assignment to learn security best practices. It's more about, aping in and minting your token safely. And so, what are the things that people run into? We talk to users all day. Ideally, you're making these moves proactively to keep yourself safe. And unfortunately, we do talk to a lot of people that wait till something bad happens before they start diving into this area. But, the number one jumping off point is social engineering, which just means people trying to trick you into giving up something or signing into the spot where you don't intend to. So, Carl mentioned the OpenSea hack. Another one we saw recently was Badger DAO. This was a DAO where people were going to what they thought was the right website. It's just a clone of the front end. Sometimes it's as basic as not following links from anywhere shady, making sure you're going to the website that you intend to interact with and being really diligent about that. And again, it can't be stated enough, never giving out that seed phrase to anybody, never giving out that private information, because those are the keys to all of your assets. It's like handing over ownership of your bank account and more. Social engineering is the biggest one. We see people, you guys see the spam messages on Discord all the time. You see, all the people on Twitter that are impersonating other people and constantly reaching out. And sometimes these things this sounds remedial, but they're confusing to people that do this all day. The people that are making money off of this are getting more sophisticated and are learning what people respond to. And we all have to slow down, because the people that are getting exposed to these problems are not just new users. They're everybody with all different levels of expertise in crypto. So it's all about going slow, not rushing, and being diligent about verifying precisely what you're doing and whom you're interacting with. So we see social engineering, people asking for your seed phrase or trying to get you to log into a very believable fake version of a website so they can get your credentials. With the latter, in crypto in particular, you might have a front end that looks totally legit, but they are trying to get you to interact with a malicious contract. So like Carl was saying, you might be signing something other than you intend to. What are ways you can protect yourselves from this? One is just being able to, take those initial steps. Look at how you get to a site, not following links, but manually entering them. And then one thing we're doing with the Lattice, and we hope to see hardware wallets in general follow suit on this, is that we are tagging accounts and letting you tag accounts. So let's talk about that Badger DAO hack, where you go to a believable website, but you're actually basically signing away your money when you think you're interacting normally. If you're tagging your account on your Lattice and it's labeled and you're used to interacting with it, it will always say Badger DAO on the signing request. When you interact with a contract and all of a sudden it's a long string of hex and you don't recognize it, that's your sign to stop, get input from somebody else. You guys are going to be focused on minting an NFT or trading or making sure you do something in a rush. There's a lot of time sensitivity in crypto, so even people who know what they should be doing sometimes skip over those steps. That's what we bring to the table, is more the ability to make better decisions, have better information at your fingertips. And that's an important part of keeping yourself safe regardless of what tools you use. Moving on from there, Carl, did you want to say more on signing and verifying what you're signing, or should we move on to, I had some notes on kind of like best practices outside of just wallets themselves?
Yeah, I mean, so right, there's two aspects, right? So the first one is keeping your key safe, and then the second one is verifying what you're signing. So in terms of keeping your key safe, really the way to do that is getting a hardware wallet, right? And there's various hardware wallets on the market that you can use with NFTs, right? Lattice1 being one of them. So what that effectively does, right, is when you have MetaMask, MetaMask is holding, if you don't have a hardware wallet, MetaMask is holding your seed phrase. So if your browser or your computer is ever compromised, an attacker can effectively get access to your seed phrase directly because it exists on your computer. So what a hardware wallet does is it still lets you use MetaMask to start your transaction, but the seed and the private keys are actually held off your computer in a more secure device. You typically MetaMask to your hardware wallet. And then when you want to do a transaction, you'll do a transaction normally, like you'll have a Web3 request, MetaMask will pop up. It'll say, do you want to sign this transaction? You'll hit sign, and then it'll send the request to your hardware wallet where you can verify what you're signing, and then you can confirm it. So that keeps your private keys off of your computer. So that's really like the first layer of security that anybody should have when interacting with crypto at any significant value. Right. So your more basic hardware wallets are, $50. Your more advanced one, like the Lattice, is 400. But when you're looking at NFTs that are potentially $500,000, $1 million, it's a very small price to pay to, increase your security and make sure that you don't have your NFTs stolen. Now, the second piece of verifying your transaction is something that the legacy wallets like Ledger and Trezor don't really offer in a very good format. And that's really where the Lattice1 shines. So if you interact with a contract, say on Ethereum with a Lattice, instead of just seeing like a blob of hex, so the 0xAB1625 whatever, when you're signing a message like you do on a ledger, you'll actually see sort of human readable data with fields, and it'll say, oh, you're exchanging this token for that token on Uniswap v3, and here's the value and the amount, et cetera, et cetera. So it's something you can actually read and confirm. And like I said, that's the second piece of security, is actually confirming what you're signing. And at GridPlus with the Lattice, we're really trying to make that process as user-friendly and as easy as possible, and that's why we make contracts human readable, unlike the older wallets that kind of just show you hex. So any hardware wallet is going to provide you a degree of security because they're going to keep your private keys off your computer. If you're heavily interacting with Web3, you really need a hardware wallet that allows you to read your contract interactions before signing. So anytime you're running in an NFT, the transaction's complex enough that you really need a Web3 sort of wallet like the Lattice1 to be able to read those transactions before making them.
I want to add to that a little bit. So, on the idea of wallets, we covered that you've got your private keys and you're storing them using a wallet. So it's a key ring. It's not the assets themselves. But that is the other critical thing when we talk about attack vectors, because outside of social engineering and getting you to go to a fake site or something like that, the more sophisticated end of the spectrum, which we do see, is when people install malware, or you download that free version of Photoshop and it came with some extra stuff you didn't bank on. And in particular, there you see things where like will hijack cutting and pasting of crypto addresses, or at the absolute worst, run malicious scripts in your browser. So Carl mentioned the two things that hardware wallets bring to the table. One is keeping your keys in a secure environment, and he really covered verifying what you're signing on a secure screen that will always tell you precisely what you're signing, even when your computer or phone are compromised. And that's on the first part, though, storing your keys in a secure environment. Why is that important? If you have a malicious script that is running on your computer, and it's atypical, but we do see this happen, it will be able to sign transactions for you using MetaMask when unlocked. So being able to separate this out to a secure environment is really like a basic first step after you have a few $100 in crypto and start delving in deeper. So that's a critical aspect of it. A couple of the things that I also, I guess we should compare and contrast what are the differences with software and hardware wallets. That's critical, and self-custody is hard in general, but that's really what they're doing. Most hardware wallets, the way you'll use them to interact is just to complement the tools that you already have. So, if you're using Avalanche, you're just most likely interacting using your Lattice through MetaMask, and we're integrating into a lot more wallets now that will let you do the same. And, that's one of the key things. And I think the other practices, stepping back even more broadly. So we've got wallets, the different types, why they're important, what you're doing with your private and public keys. The other thing we do see on the sophisticated end of the spectrum with attacks is when people try to take over your accounts, the worst of which is probably with cell phone porting. When you use second factor authentication, if you have that option to use Authenticator to log into any critical crypto account, always use that, and do not use SMS text message based 2FA unless that's the only option that you're stuck with. The reason for that is we see people trying to port phones to get access to your email and accounts to take over your exchange accounts, for example. And when the only backup on that is, sending something to your Gmail to verify that it's you, well, that's not great when they have full access through your phone.
Oh, there's a couple aspects to that. So yeah, so basically the telecom providers are really stupid. And if you have online access to your account for your phone service, so like Verizon, AT&T, Sprint, whatever, people can easily go online, figure out, the password on that account, somehow compromise that account, somehow do a password reset, whatever it is, and they'll gain access to that account. And then once they do, they port your phone number over. And then once they've ported your phone number over, it's not just about not having SMS linked to Coinbase. You need to have it not linked to anything. Because if I can get access to your email, I can reset your password on Coinbase, right? Or even if I have like an old email account from like 10 years ago that I still don't use, and it's like a secondary Gmail account, that secondary Gmail account can be used to get access to your primary Gmail account. So if that secondary Gmail account has SMS access and someone reports your number and you still haven't used this account in 10 years, they're going to be able to get into that account. They're going to be able to use that account to reset the password on your main account. And then they're going to be able to use your main account to get into your Coinbase. So like SMS is like the devil. It is something you don't want to have on any service that's important to you, and you don't want to have it on any service or email that's linked to anything that has to do with crypto at all. So like that's like one of the first steps of like you're not going to make it versus you're going to make it is using SMS or not using SMS. So like I cannot stress enough that like you absolutely don't want to have SMS, and it has to be not linked to anything that's associated with any of your crypto, including your emails and including emails associated with emails that you have. Does everybody understand kind of that that rant right there? But SMS is like the absolute worst. Now, the other thing that you can do is you can actually make a request to your telecom provider to effectively put a lock on your account, and that will remove online access to making changes, and it will force people to be at person in store with ID to be able to make a change to your account. And so that's the other piece that you should do. Like, get rid of your online access to your phone number account, go to the store, tell them you want a lock and you only want an in-person ID base, and that will help. But you can't fix SMS. You can make it a little bit better, but you shouldn't depend on it. But you should also put locks on all of your phone numbers.
So we've been talking a little bit about why self-custody is scary, but let's talk about why it's good and how it can also be used to help keep your assets more safe. With the discussion of SMS takeovers of your accounts, or not having second factor authentication.
Hold on. But Justin, before we move away from SMS, I think within GridPlus, I know 4 people who have had their phone number ported, including myself, and I think including you.
I haven't yet, but I think your number is right about the total people. Like it happens to people even when they do everything right.
Yeah, you absolutely cannot depend on SMS. You will eventually get a phone number ported.
Why I think sessions like this are important is that everyone in crypto, after like a certain amount of time, they don't want to ask about these things. And it's important to realize that with exploits that take place, there are people that are developers. There are people working in security that deal with all of these things. Crypto is just a massive honeypot for scammers and hackers, because when you self-custody assets, it makes it easy for them to get away with it. So this is why we have to stay so diligent. And I just want to encourage everyone to always be proactive. Like when you're not sure about something, ask in your Discord communities. Come on our Discord and ask. We're always happy to help you try and keep yourself safe. It's actually.
I will also say though, just so people are aware, when I say don't use SMS, the alternative is using something like Google Authenticator or some sort of dongle-based second factor. So the way Google Authenticator works is instead of entering your phone number when you sign up for a website, you can, many of them will allow you to turn on 2FA using Google Authenticator or, a dongle like device. And so then what happens is during the sign up process, they effectively give you like a code. You enter that code into your device, and then your device will then randomly generate like 6-digit codes based off time in the future. So then every time you come to log in, you'll need, your username, password, but then it'll also prompt you for your second factor. And so you'll get your phone out or you'll get your dongle out, you'll plug it in, it'll generate a 6-digit code, and you'll enter that to be able to log in, as well as do any like transfers. So that's sort of the alternative to SMS, which is the devil. That's the first thing that like you're going to get significantly pwned on. So yeah. Get rid of SMS based on medication.
Carl's right. It is the devil. If that's your takeaway from One of the key takeaways from today, SMS is the devil, and he's not exaggerating that. We've seen just people that do everything right get their phone ported and lose assets, which brings me to why self-custody is awesome. Some people that have lost assets through that route is because people have been able to log into their exchange accounts. When you have your keys properly managed and you have everything offline, the only thing that is going to allow your funds to get accessed is you, and if you make a mistake. And there's ways to help kind of create firewalls around all of that to make it even easier for yourself and give you more peace of mind. Once you have your own crypto managed outside of an exchange, outside of a custodial environment, then you're not subject to any sort of login hack like that. The other thing I would recommend to everybody is to kind of maintain good account hygiene and have a few crypto accounts. So if you're actively trading NFTs all the time, have a kind of hot account, even if it's, think of it, I guess, like in traditional terms, like your checking and your savings and your stock brokerage account. You don't want to cash out your life savings to go to the grocery store and spend $20. And in much the same way, what you're actively using should kind of be in one pool. And I would say have, ideally, if you have a lot of cold storage crypto you want to just sort of set aside and not touch, put that in a different account, store those separately offline, and then you don't have to worry about, with all of your keys coming from a single seed phrase, if you make one mistake that you slip up and have a catastrophe.
Yeah. So in addition to that, though, right? Like, so there's two different types of separation, right? You can have different seed phrases, so like different wallets, which is a good idea. It's like the best idea, but there's a lot of overhead because you have to like maintain new seed phrases, right, in potentially different environments. But even if you don't do that with everything, actually using separate accounts also provides a degree of security. So like if you have a bunch of NFTs, and like some are high value NFTs, some are like, shitcoin NFTs, or like very early on NFTs that like aren't a lot of value, or like airdrop NFTs, you're still going to gain some security by keeping those just in different accounts under the same wallet. So even if you have one sort of seed phrase in MetaMask, keeping kind of like your airdrops in one account and your high value ones in another account will prevent, if somebody has a one of those attacks where they effectively get you to sign something that allows a contract to sort of gain access to the NFTs in your wallet, it'll only affect the account. It won't affect the entirety of the wallet. So even just separating in that wallet, your high values versus your low values versus your airdrops versus these are kind of shady NFTs, that actually provides a level of security right there. Now, the next level, like Justin said, is now let's say I have like my Bitcoins and my Ether. I would probably have that in a completely separate wallet than what I would do my NFT work in. So that if you do get owned, it's like a segmented loss. It's not a loss of all of your stuff.
There's a question in the chat that kind of ties into this neatly. So one thing that was really cool about the hardware design of the Lattice1, that Carl, this approach that you've taken is pretty unique, is that in terms of backing up your seed phrase, we use something called a safecard. And what that lets you do is have a pin protected card that looks exactly like a credit card. It has the same sort of physically unclonable chip that's in the credit and debit cards in your wallet. And that lets you back up securely in a pin protected way. But the other thing with account management like this, like once you're in crypto for a long time, you're probably going to end up with multiple wallets, and it can be a pain in the ass to manage and back it all up securely and keep track of. So what's cool about what Carl did with the Lattice is that you can have a different seed phrase on each of these cards. So they're great as a backup, but they also make it so that it's an extensible system. It's one signing hub for all of your keys versus having different wallets everywhere. So in this way, for a heavy user, the Lattice1 replaces like a whole drawer full of legacy Bitcoin hardware wallets. And you can just switch by inserting the card, entering the PIN for the safe card, and then your active accounts switch over. So if you're trading with MetaMask, you can have safeguard accounts paired at the same time you have Lattice1 accounts paired, and manage everything from one secure hub. So that makes that process of account segmentation easier, whether you do it with multiple addresses within just one seed phrase, or you're managing multiple completely different wallets. So yeah, I hope that answers a little bit. I'm just going to check back on the question to make sure we covered what was
We've been going for a bit, Justin. Do we want to see if anyone has questions?
Oh yeah, man. We're already like 40 minutes deep going through all this, and we could talk all day, but questions are starting to come up. DiCaprio, do you want us to pick through from text, or do you want to introduce some people on stage?
Yeah, so there was a few members on stage, but it looks like they left. If anybody has a question, please raise your hand and I could grant you access to the stage. But there's nobody stuck in that stage queue right now, Justin. So let's look on the text chat.
I see one good one that you shared in DM about taking your existing seed phrase and migrating that to a hardware wallet. We get why people do that. I mean, it is a pain to, if you've been curating a huge NFT collection, the cost for transaction fees to move it and the amount of work involved in doing it, we get why you just want to import it. If you are 100% sure that you've managed everything perfectly, it's okay to do that. Wallets all use the same standard for seed phrases for the most part. Just about everything but a ledger uses the same standard called BIP39, which is just that seed phrase and where your devices look for accounts. And everyone can also generally accommodate Ledger's proprietary approach as well now because they're so ubiquitous. But I would say if you want the absolute best peace of mind, you should generate a new account when you get a hardware wallet, just so that you know that if you've used that seed phrase in a hot wallet before, that it was never compromised in any way. You can migrate, but this is what we would recommend. That's the best approach. If you have to migrate, you can. And I would say if you do that, make sure you remove those keys from any hot wallet, any other tools where you used it. Take a careful look at how you've backed up that seed phrase and where. But we always would recommend you start totally clean when you get a secure device.
Yeah, that's the perfect answer. Thanks for that. I do that exactly too for all my wallets, especially the ones that are storing a little bit of coins, I'll say, or shit coins or meme coins. I always start off fresh with the cold wallet and use my hot wallet to transfer that to that cold wallet if necessary. But generally, is there like a best practice on the amount of, I guess, keys you should be balancing? Because you're mentioning like a checkings account versus a savings account. Is there best practice for the amount of savings accounts people should have, or is
I can say
just
what I
want to hear
do.
your thoughts?
The right solution. I think Carl will probably have a different approach, but we can each share like what we do. So on my Lattice, I've got each seed phrase lets you do an unlimited number of wallets, right? Individual addresses. So it's like one key ring, and so I have
your each seed phrase lets you do an unlimited number of keys, which in Ethereum are accounts, not wallet, right?
Yeah.
So wallet is basically a seed phrase. So if you have one seed phrase, you have one wallet.
No, you're right. It's important to be precise with that language because wallet is already something of a misnomer, and I think that it's confusing. So you're right that we have to be precise on that. I will say what I'm doing though is with my primary Lattice, with all my daily signing, I have multiple addresses. I'm a heavy Ethereum user, so I have one that is like a public address that is linked to my ENS name, and I use that for all kinds of things where I'm comfortable with people knowing what I'm doing online. I also have, a couple of trading accounts all set in there, but I also have a completely separate wallet, a completely separate seed phrase for my cold storage, the set it and forget it stuff. So that is my approach. I have a few active addresses that I use all on one device. And then using safecards, I have backups of my cold storage. That might also be once Carl shares what he's doing. Oh, looks like he got bumped off stage. I would say that brings us to the idea of how you back up that seed phrase, and that's really important.
Well, I'll say what I do. So personally, I have many different things that I have to do in crypto. So right, we own a company. Like the company has crypto. I have crypto. I kind of help relatives custodian crypto, et cetera, et cetera. So what I always do is I always segment my different uses with different seed phrases, and that's kind of how I operate. So I actually have like a number of seed phrases that I use. But one of the really cool parts about the Lattice is the safeguard. So prior to using the Lattice and safeguards, I probably wouldn't have any seed phrases. Lattice makes it super convenient to set up a new system and properly like make backups of it. So it's like very easy to do. So personally, a lot of my seed phrases I don't write them down anymore. I only use safecards. And so when I set up an account, I'll make a triplicate of a safecard. So I'll have 3 safecards, and a safecard is effectively a pin protected seed phrase. But the cool part about that is, when I have a seed phrase, I have to like worry about like where it is and who can see it. Because if anyone ever sees it, my funds will get owned. So the cool part about a safeguard though is I can like drop a safeguard in the supermarket and I don't have to worry about like losing any money, which is not the case if I had like a written down seed phrase. So my process is always sort of triplicating seed phrases and doing it that way on safecards. So I have many accounts for every sort of purpose under the sun, and I also segment sort of major use cases. So for just the personal stuff, it's kind of, you have a hot account, all right, so you should say a warm account, which is the native account on the Lattice, and then I have sort of like my cold account, which is on safecards. And then I'll also keep like a little bit of money in like a MetaMask hot wallet, but you should never keep anything in a hot wallet that you're not willing to lose. So when we talk about like using hardware wallets, anything in a hot wallet, you just have to assume one day will be stolen. So you have to be like okay with that. So you shouldn't have amounts that you really, really care about.
Oh, it comes to like an important thing about how he's backing up. So he's using safecards, but there was someone who asked in the question.
Hey, Justin.
Yeah,
I'm gonna switch devices here. Can you let me in on my other device? I'm gonna
sure.
drop here if you can let me back. Okay.
Yeah, I had a few people have mentioned in the chat that you and I we're breaking up a little bit periodically.
Yeah. Let me drop to my other device.
So I was gonna address a question that came up in the chat. They're like, all right, so what happens to my hardware wallet? What happens to my account when my hardware wallet explodes, is taken by aliens, if there's a flood? And the answer there is it's really all about the backups for every account you're using with any meaningful amount of money on it, or other types of digital assets that are valuable. You should have 2 secure backups, like at a minimum, because there's no one to call when you lose your keys. That's it. It's critical to maintain for all your accounts at least 2 secure backups. Ideally, they have some degree of physical security. So like if you were writing down a seed phrase, I don't like this approach. Some people do it on steel or paper, but it's the same impact if someone can take a photo of that seed phrase and then own all of your assets by just plugging those words into another wallet. I advocate either, if you're going to store something written, break it into multiple pieces and like put them in different locations, and just having it half and half so no one getting their hands on one portion of it is going to ruin your day. What I actually do for backups is 2 things. I primarily use safecards now. I use an offline computer and just like a regular USB thumb drive, and I have an encrypted Excel file with seed phrases on some thumb drives that are locked up. That may not be ideal, but for me, that's good enough. It's double password protected and physically protected. But no matter what, make sure that you back up, and it's also backed up in a way that someone going through your sock drawer is not going to be able to just find that and suddenly have ownership of all your money at their disposal.
Yeah, that's a good point. Even for me, yeah, I don't write my seed phrases on a piece of paper. There's lots of tools on Amazon as well which you could utilize. One of the things which a member that I'm very close to introduced to me was like a pin protected USB device. So essentially the USB plugs into your computer and you set a specific pin to access the files on that USB drive. I've been using that for a few years now, and that's never let me down. But that's just another one of the options. I've also seen things. I've seen so many options on Amazon, but I just want to be certain that please make sure, if you folks have any questions about tools, devices, the GridPlus team for backing up seed phrases, the GridPlus team and also the Project X team, hit up our Discord at any point in time, and we're more than happy to help you guys.
One item I would just want to circulate here as well is when we're talking about seed phrases and holding seed phrases as say paper backups, there's that option of the 25th word, if people are familiar. So you can effectively add a password to your seed phrase. So it's one extra word that sort of you provide. It's restricted to like single cased ASCII text. So that password, which should be unique, will be unique because of the character set that you're going to be able to draw it from. But, research has been done, and in the first, I think it was 8 years of Bitcoin, the biggest cause of loss that accounted for nearly half of all lost funds
or people forgetting their 25th word. On a paper backup, the 25th word is, potentially not super advisable, and that's why I like the safecards, or, like DiCaprio suggested, like a pin protected USB device, because like pins are something that seem to be easier to keep current than like a one-time use unique passphrase. So there is a balance between sort of like security, but also just accessibility. Because like if you make it very, very hard to access your funds, one, you're less likely to use that mechanism, and then two, you're potentially more likely to just through your own loss of information lose access to those funds. So I think using pins on a protected USB drive or a safeguard is probably like a good middle ground.
One of the things that's coming up a lot in the chat is GridPlus specific. When restock, we get asked this a lot. With the way that the world is working right now with logistics and shipping and the microchip shortage, have to forecast our demand, several months out, and we've been pleasantly overwhelmed with the demand for the Lattice1, and we're going to be back in stock soon with a much larger run to accommodate that demand. Ideally, late next month, maybe early May. So we're like 4 to 6 weeks out. The best way to keep up to speed, just follow us on Twitter. We'll drop a link. We have a mailing list that you can sign up on at the bottom of our webpage. We are really judicious about emailing people. We don't want to bother you except for something important. But we'll mention restocks there, and that's a good jumping off point. And then just stay engaged on our Discord too.
I will add though, in terms of the restock, we should actually get a few hundred in the next couple weeks. That'll be like a very, very like limited amount. It'll probably go away in like 2 or 3 days. Do sign up for the email list when that does come in. If you're quick to act, you'll be able to pick one up probably this month.
And we're doing all we can to ramp up to make sure everyone who wants a Lattice can get one. Weeks, not months. We're getting there.
Oh yeah, but also, as Justin was saying too, if you join our Discord, you'll sort of get information there. And the GridPlus Discord's a pretty cool place. We have a pretty sophisticated community. And if you have these security questions or questions about a Lattice or safecards or like how to do backups, there's people in the community that can answer. And then we also have employees that we have. Justin's on there a lot. And then we have some technical kind of community managers, customer service guys on there all the time. So if there's any questions regarding the Lattice specifically or any sort of other security related questions, if you hop in there, someone will answer you pretty fast.
And you don't have to be a Lattice1 owner. If you have a general security question, come on. We're not on 24/7. We're not a massive team. And I want to give a shout out to, you're noticing in the GridPlus chat, we've got 3 of the people you're going to see every day on our Discord on there. We've got Logic Beach, JT Nickel, our media expert, and he shows up as Blitz on this Discord, but VJ is our customer success lead. These are the guys in the trenches every day answering security questions. JT likes to hang out and voice chat and just go over basics with people. And so we try to be available as much as possible. We're mostly US based. We're an international team, but so be patient if you have an emergency question at like 4 a.m. US Eastern time. But we want to be available as a resource to everybody to make sure that you're making the right choices to keep yourself safe. No one should get wrecked on our watch. We'll do all we can to help you keep yourself safe. Looks like the Discord link isn't working. I'll grab another one. But hit us up with the last few questions. We're coming up on time. It blew by. DiCaprio, is there anything else that we glossed over that you're curious about or that we missed from a community question?
I think you guys have touched on every question that they posed so far.
Okay, I'm grabbing that link address. I'll drop that in the GridPlus chat, or I can do it right in info. It seems to be working fine for me. I don't know why the Kingstonian, why you're getting that request invalid message, but let us know. Drop us a line, and we're going to hang out in the Discord for a little bit after too, and answer any other questions you have. But I guess if there's nothing else, thank you so much for having us. It's really awesome, and I hope that you'll think of us as a resource when you have questions, things you're worried about with security, and you need a hand. That's what we're on deck to do.
Yeah, thank you folks so much. I truly appreciate it. From a personal standpoint, we've had many, many members have their seed phrases stolen, whether through a malicious website, whether somebody found the piece of paper which contains it, something along those lines. We get about 2 or 3 of those folks a week. And I myself, I personally feel guilty just for not educating my community. And we try to enforce people, please get hardware wallets. Do not share your seed phrases. Please take these folks' advice. They're professionals. Even some of our mods actually have please get hardware wallets in their Discord names, as crazy as that sounds. But we're here to help you. Well, we're not only here to push Project X, but we're also here to keep your folks' hard-earned money safe. So again, if you have any questions, please Project X Discord, hardware wallet chat. GridPlus's Discord is popping all the time, so please ask them any questions as you wish. If there's anything that I just want to emphasize here is don't share your key phrase or seed phrase. Use two-factor authentication apps, which I learned today, instead of SMS. And try to maintain multiple wallets, one for cold storage and one for hot storage, we'll call it. Mods will never DM you. Justin, Carl won't DM you asking you for your seed phrases as well. So please be very, very diligent when speaking to people. Justin, Carl, GridPlus team, you guys are awesome, man. Truly appreciate it. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks so much for having us. And yeah, man, it's fun. Time just blasts by.
Yeah, I know it's crazy. I appreciate it, guys. Thanks for your time today. And yeah, enjoy your day.